Well, you want to just go
Yeah.
start going through some of the blends? So, I guess for starters, you hit on the tillage thing, right? So I don't love tillage. There are places and times when it is necessary, but I try to avoid it as much as possible just because soil structure is like number one. If you have no soil structure, you have no water holding capacity, you have less organic matter, you have less organisms in the soil working in your favor, right? So you could deep dive off that cliff too, but let's focus on some of the blends, I guess. So when I think soil structure, it's the opposite of compaction in a sense, right? So to start right off, some of these, well, a lot of these brassica blends, really all of them, do some form of like reducing compaction. So I guess for starters, like Radish Plus, so we've got daikon radishes and kale. Daikon radishes, you know, in the right environment, they could get this deep in the soil per se, you know. So really their whole purpose in this blend, outside of the fact that a radish leaf is very attractive to a whitetail, the sole purpose of this blend is just to break deep compaction, right? That's what that radish is in there for, from a soil health perspective. From a deer perspective, they're highly attractive, right? And then the kale really is just an added seed into this just for that attraction purpose. It improves, you know, organic matter per se, but like as far as compaction goes, the radish itself is doing the most of the work there. And they just seem to do well together from an attraction standpoint. From radishes, we can go into brassicas, I guess. So this has got purple top turnips, the same daikon radish, and then also forage collards. So if you have, let's say you've got, you know, you've been running the disc over and over for quite a few years, but you haven't run it very deep because you think it's not going to hurt the soil as bad, right? Well, in fact, really, wherever that disc is going, whether it's 2 inches or 6 inches, like you've still destroyed your structure, whatever length that disc is going down. And so by destroying your structure, it just kind of shrinks every rain, it compacts. And so you're creating a compaction layer. So brassicas, having the purple top turnips and the daikon radishes, you get compaction reduction from more than just the deep from the radish. So turnips are going to create a big old bulb. They're not going to get as deep in the soil, but they create a big bulb, huge hole once they rot away. Basically just another area for the next seed to go into and more roots to grow down the next year. It just promotes basically channels in the soil. So you're reducing compaction at different layers with this blend. Plus more diversity always seems to be a pro in any scenario, right? And then the collards really are just an added forage in that area. And you get a little bit it's always nice to have more than one plant in a blend because there's going to be some environments where a collard might be favorable over a radish or a turnip or vice versa. So just having something else in there that's attractive to a whitetail, just to enhance the blend. Quick dive into why I like brassicas. Like anything with the turnips, the purple top turnips specifically, or the sugar beets, anything with a good bulb, those areas outside of a soil health perspective, we've hit on that. Like as far as just whitetails, I want to have those in a late season area per se generally, right? I mean, you could do it anywhere, but purple top turnips are going to be very highly attractive to a whitetail in the December or frozen months, right, of the year. So I guess I would turn to turnips, the brassicas with the purple top turnips, and even the radish per se, because they will feed on the radishes once they get, you know, kind of freeze off or whatever. But I would tend to plant those more of a late season area if I had the choice. The cool part about almost all of these blends is you could interchange them, you could mix them together. I like mixing them together because I like having multiple species, because then you've got early, late, mid, compaction layers. You're just getting it all when you do that, right? And the more, like I said, the more seeds you have in a blend, you might have a wet spring, you might have a dry spring, you might have a wet fall, you might have a late fall, you might have full sun, you might have shade. So if you get a little bit of everything in there, you're gonna find something that's gonna thrive in those conditions. Deer greens. So deer greens is gonna have 7 top turnips, rape, and kale. So this is used for, like its name, right? Deer greens. So pretty much this blend, in my opinion, in my eyes specifically, is used for early to mid-fall attraction. It's big leafy greens. Just think, not getting a whole lot of below ground growth necessarily, but really the idea is to increase above ground tonnage, which you're going to improve organic matter that way. I think in my eyes, a lot of people are going to use this in your half acre or less archery range October deer blend, specifically just designed for maximum above ground tonnage. The turnip blend is two different kinds of turnips, 7-top turnips and purple top turnips. So you're going to get some leafy greens, good for that early fall archery season, but then the bulbs are going to give you some late season attraction, going to get that compaction, reducing factor out of it. Super easy to get established, generally speaking, because they're super tiny seeds. They're all the same size in the bag too, so it runs through your hand seeder really easily. And this is a blend that I think, like a true, throw it and watch it grow. Because those seeds are so small, it's really easy for it to get the adequate seed to soil contact that it needs without doing any tillage, which is probably my favorite thing about it. You can, take a grassy area, or maybe you had some soybeans there, whatever it is. If you've got a new plot you're establishing, hit it with some glyphosate, burn it down, right? Let that stuff start to kind of melt down in a sense. Throw that right over top. That stuff with a good rain will get down through that easier because it's a really tiny seed, and it doesn't take a lot of soil to produce good seed to soil contact for germination. Probably my favorite blend for just getting something established quite easily, because the seeds are so small, and they're all the same size, so you can set your gate really small and not overseed, because you can get this stuff, you can overseed this stuff. I guess cons to overseeding it, you're not going to get much of a bulb growth, but you're going to get a lot of green matter. So you could kind of play with your rates, and over time you'll kind of figure out what you like the best. But turnips in a nutshell. Basically, purple top turnips, you're going to have leafy greens, but you get the bulb. So in my experience, the purple top turnip in a blend with other brassicas hasn't been their first choice for eating the leafy green, just in my experience. So you add 7-top turnips in the blend to get a little more attraction to the leaves themselves. They'll eat the purple top turnips if that's all they've got, right? But that's why it's nice to have a diversity. So 7-top, think that's the leaf they're going to eat. Purple top, think that's the bulb they're going to eat. And then you get early and late season in the same time. Sugar beet's going to have that same purple top turnip with it, and then just the sugar beets, clearly, right? So we didn't want to just bring sugar beets solely by themselves. I think there always needs to be an additional seed with something, right? It's just, we've talked about diversity. So sugar beets aren't the easiest thing to get established in all areas of the world. Purple top turnips are pretty easy. So, sugar beets are highly attractive. We like them a lot, but in a sense where you might have not the perfect weather conditions, or you don't get them planted quite early enough, then you've got the backup, I guess, per se, in the bag to help save the plot. But the sole purpose of this is the sugar beet. A little bit different planting time for sugar beets in most of the Midwest. We'd like to scoot that up in the year a little bit more than just your standard fall time frame, but it can be done with the right environment in the right area. If you had one blend that was a green plot for late season, it's going to be this: sugar beets and purple top turnips. We'll talk about the clover kind of really quick first, and then get into this, because this is kind of one of my favorite ones. Everybody has clover. If you know anything about deer, you know deer love clover. White clovers in particular seem to be the most attractive to deer. So we've got a couple white clovers in here, and then we've also got an annual clover. The annual clover really is just to get fast establishment, I guess. Try to compete with the weeds. This is also my favorite blend as far as a frost seed goes. So seeds are really small, frost seeds really well. Anytime you've got a good actual freeze and thaw, a couple times, maybe multiple times would be great, February time frame. Probably the best time to plant this if you don't have equipment. The cool part about all of these blends behind them, if you've got this in the fall, you're going right over top into this. That's the best way to get a clover plot established. You've already reduced the weed seed in the fall with one of these. Come back in the spring and throw these right over top. You don't have to do any prep work, and it will work well, as long as you have that good freeze thaw and a lot of moisture in the spring. This is simple, right? Easy, fairly easy to get established. Pretty easy to keep the weeds down. A couple mows, maybe hit it with some 2,4-DB, 2,4-DB specifically, not 2,4-D. But just your standard clover for whitetails right here. I've used a lot of white clovers from different places, my own blends, different blends in the past, and there was always something that I was missing in that, and that was basically the time frame we're getting ready to hit in the state of Iowa, and that's August, September. Generally speaking, most of the Midwest in that time frame gets really hot and pretty dry. White clovers don't always tend to do the best in that time of the year. They'll in a sense, somewhat go dormant, they'll burn up. They will come back once they get in the moisture in the fall, but they just lose some of their value, in my opinion, during those months. Also, a lot of the reason why we like to plant these during that time, because your deer can shift to a plot like this during that time. But I wanted more from my clover, so kind of had the idea of adding chicory and alfalfa essentially to the same clover blend. And specifically what that's giving us is that window where your clover is stressed. Those two plants tend to thrive in those environments. Hot weather, a little bit drier. Chicory especially, they're really fast to have rapid regrowth after a mow or after browse pressure, so you're always going to have tonnage there. And alfalfa, just that a little extra attraction to the clover, but then to get that extra heat and drought stress tolerance in those kind of awkward months where the beans are starting to senesce, so we're losing a lot of green matter there in the country. Your brassicas maybe aren't quite big enough, to get establishment. And it keeps some pressure off of these blends when they're in the early stages of growth by still having some clover and some chicory and alfalfa on your farm for them to browse. So that was kind of a big part in this. Tried this out a couple of times before we put this together. Fell in love with that combination, and I think it's going to be a great play for a lot of different environments going forward. So we've got two seed coatings on our products, Established and Essential. Established is going to give you a fungicide and a nutrient package to increase your healthy germination of the plant, and basically a boost, a jump start into that early stages of growth that are usually pretty stressful for a plant. And then Essential is basically a boost on your water uptake capacity on the seed. So dry land weather, a lot of times we're planting in that dry soil, especially if you can't get to moisture in the soil. You want to use the most moisture you can with the next rain that you're going to get. So Essential is water uptake efficiency. So we kind of went through kind of our core 7 blends. Just to reiterate, our whole purpose at Rolling Hills essentially is to take the land that we have and make it better. We want to improve the soil for wildlife, for ourselves, and for the future generations to come. So these core 7 blends are just starting. We've got a lot more that we're looking at. Our whole goal is just to improve your property, improve your farm, improve your soil health, and improve your wildlife.